Okay, boys, we're back. Welcome to Season 7 of the Robby Rowe Show Baseball Podcast. This is your host, Rowland, coming in hot. Let's get it going.
May I have your attention, please?
Give me a heater.
Now listening to Clear the Mechanism.
The Robby Rowe Show.
The Robby Rowe Show.
Yeah. We're back. Season 7. Welcome. It's been a minute. How long has it been? Since March 30th. So almost exactly 6 months, if math is right. We have come a long way in 6 months. We just had when I say we, I just had a full season, 2021 roller coaster year. Per usual. Let's go ahead and talk about it in this episode. So I did the same thing, I believe, in 2020, and then in the winter, I did a winter ball recap. So the selfish ambition of these types of podcasts is I get a ton out of it. Literally just throw up the recorder and just talk and work stuff out and just kind of ponder everything. Be super mindful of everything and just talk it into a mic, and this way you guys can hear it, I can work through it, so on and so forth. So I've done a couple of these already. You can check those out from the previous year, and then in winter ball did a recap, and then so my goal is to start season 7 with this particular episode, and then second episode of season 7 I want to do a preparation process type thing moving forward. So as of this very second in space and time, it is September 22nd, and I report to Puerto Rico for another season in winter ball October 25th. So I literally have a month to get ready. All right. So like I said, this particular episode is just going to be like a recap, just kind of talking about every single thing that happened, and what I did well, what I didn't do well, and so on and so forth. So couple things before we just get going. And I am in my office back home in California. I recorded this episode on the drive home from New York. I did a three-day trip home from New York, had to make a wedding. I was the best man, killed the speech. Sorry about it. So I apologize if the audio for whatever reason sucks once again, but hopefully you can look past that. Before we get going on that episode, just a few quick things that I know a lot of people always ask me about and stuff that I've already done content on. I have a full blog on my website for all the routines that go into starting pitching. All right. So I wanted to put together a page for all the starting pitching routines that I do throughout the year in season. You can find that therobbyrowshow.com/starting-routine. And then all my routines from warm-ups, post-throw, bullpens, long toss, whatever, all those can be found therobbyrowshow.com/Robby routines. That's Robby with a Y. Don't spell it wrong. And then I did a full vlog series, indie ball vlog, that I'm still trying to get episodes edited. My editor just recently went back to school. So if you are a vlog editor, shoot me an email, because I got 4 episodes on deck and they need to be edited, and I do not have the time. But you can check out the Indie Ball vlog. Either just go right to my YouTube and click the playlist that says Indie Ball vlog, or you can go to therobbyrowshow.com. That's the homepage, and you'll see a button there that will take you to the Indie Ball vlog. The button's probably just says Indie Ball vlog. Analysis service for this month, I will be taking on clients, therobbyrowshow.com/analysis, ANALYSIS. If you want to book your analysis, you have a month. All right. And don't book it the day that I leave. That would suck. All my throwing content in season, out of season, I record everything. All that can be found on my YouTube, but you got to be a subscriber to check that out. So be sure you're subscribed to my YouTube. Okay, now all that is out of the way. Let's go ahead and get to the first episode of season 7. Dope. Season 7. That's cool. And we're going to be recapping the 2021 season from your boy. Yikes. Let's get to it. Hope you enjoy. I do this every year. I did this even before I started podcasting. At the end of every year, I would just reflect, and I would just be super open with everything, super honest, try to be like unbiased, everything, just where we at, right? Like where were we throughout the whole season with performance-wise, execution-wise, goal orientation, and then towards the end, you start talking about like a plan and a process moving forward to continue to develop, to continue to grow. And I want to specify now that like we're talking about this whole like growth thing. I know there's a bunch of haters and stuff that are like, dude, you're 29, almost 30, even though I will never admit that publicly. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're clearly not good at this thing we call pitching in the game we call baseball. Like, why are you even trying so hard? The game of baseball is so unique in a way that like you never know. Like, you never know. Obviously the people that have the decision-making abilities look at it with like, the age being a huge factor. But the more we see it, like, Adam Wainwright is in the top 10 ERA right now, and he's 40, 2? And there's plenty of guys that I continue to hear about and read stories about in this game, and it just fires me up that, one thing clicked, or even like the stories where the guy was out 5 years and then all of a sudden was like, yeah, I'll just play again, and all of a sudden, boom, he's in the big leagues. Like, that's the most beautiful part of this game is I can never rule myself out. I can't. And I really do. Obviously, I'm convicted and I'm confident within my abilities and within my work ethic, and my preparation, all that stuff. And I think I know the numbers will try to define me otherwise, but I really do think I'm pretty dang close to figuring this whole thing out. And what's the worst case scenario, right? Like, I obtain all this information. Holy bumps. I obtain all this information for myself for like my personal journey in this game, and I don't make it, and then, oh, that's such a bad thing. No, dude, like then I get to share that, right? Like, that's the most powerful piece of all of this. It's probably why, like, that's probably the biggest fueling factor. I don't know about the biggest, but another huge piece to why I do what I do in terms of the growth and the learning, the continuing of learning, right, throughout this game, is to pass that on. And like I said, you never know when you're just one little fine-tune adjustment or switch in mindset or mechanical thing. Like, you never know when that one thing is going to happen and all of a sudden you're in the big leagues. I gotta roll down my window because this fly is wanting to go out. So, of course, right when I said it, he flew away. I think he just wants some attention on the show. Today's podcast episode is sponsored by flies. No, that's stupid. Okay, I'll roll down that window because he wants to go out there. Just go out, man. You think? Oh, okay. Do you think he survives that? If I'm going, so the speed limit's 80, I'm going 80 miles an hour, and I roll down my window, and this fly that's probably been in the cab for, a pretty good amount of time gets sucked out the window. Pretty good amount of force. Does he live? All right. Anyways, I know you guys are just like, why am I listening to this? This is bad. Anyways, I've been in a car alone for 3 days now, and I've been traveling about 1,200 miles a day, I think, maybe a little less. I'm just kind of oblivious and completely socially awkward right now. So at 8:30 on the pod track, we are starting this episode pertaining to my 2021 recap. Okay, so at the beginning of the year, I was slotted, like, it was kind of a last minute thing, honestly, like going to indie ball after a pretty good winter ball season, which I thought, maybe I could get picked up. I was talking to a few different teams, affiliated teams that would maybe give me an opportunity, but with the whole COVID thing, just makes it difficult trying to get in while they're trying to push everyone out. Long story short, didn't get an affiliated offer, so then the goal was to go play, right? Now, I got a lot of questions regarding, like, why did I go and be a starting pitcher when I'm clearly better as a relief pitcher? And I will not shy away from admitting that whatsoever. The whole dynamic with indie ball, like independent baseball, is that, well, there's two things, and I'll be super open and blunt with this kind of talking point. So the first thing is I never really want to go to independent baseball as a bullpen guy, because they have the potential to get just absolutely abused. And coming off lat surgery in 2019, that's not something that I wanted to do, because obviously there's not a lot of like money invested in you as a player. So it's kind of just like, all right, man, when your freaking number's called, you're going in, and if you're throwing well, you're going to be throwing a lot, right? So that's another thing. And I guess there's three dynamics. So second one is the money. Now, independent baseball, just like minor league baseball, maybe worse, like you're not going to get paid a lot. You're not going to independent baseball to make a living, okay? But for me, being 11 years into pro ball, I'm considered a veteran, so I would get like the max or whatever the team felt necessary. And they typically just don't pay bullpen guys a whole lot, like nothing, almost. Maybe less than nothing. No, that's an exaggeration. But you're always going to get more money as a starter. It's just like big leagues, right? Like, it's no accident that the starters get paid more than the bullpen guys. So it's similar there. So that was another thing. And third, I wasn't forced into it. I love starting. Like, being a starting pitcher is probably the most fun that I have with pitching, because I love to over-articulate. I love to overanalyze. I love to think. I love the routine. I love like the preparation. I love the 5-day, 6-man or 6-day starting pitching rotation. Speaking of that, I have a whole YouTube playlist on my YouTube channel for starting pitching routine, and it's training, throwing, long toss, pull downs, catch play, bullpens. Did I say that already? Mobility, all that stuff, all the starting pitching routines is in one playlist, so go check that out. So I love starting pitching. I'm just a routine guy, right? So I gravitate towards that. Now, I've already admitted that out of the bullpen, I'm just better, and I think I'm just better because there's none of the thinking, there's none of the over articulating. You go out there and you throw what you have in terms of like your best stuff. And for me, I throw harder, my stuff is sharper. When I'm a starter, I think there's just some subconscious thing that's like, I got to put the ball there. I got to kind of go 80% throughout the first 5 innings. I got to do this for the flip the lineup over the first time, blah, blah, blah. And I understand it. I acknowledge it. I accept it. That's just who I am. But yeah, anyways. So now let's kind of recap the whole Lake Erie thing. Got there, and it was my first time as a starter in quite some time, and I hadn't really built up by the time that I got out there. Like I said, it kind of happened really quick in terms of the signing thing. So by the time that I got out there, I think I had like 2 days, and then I was in a sim game, I was in a simulated game, and the first time that I threw in that simulated game was freaking dope. Like, I threw, I think 5 no-hit, maybe perfect innings. I don't think I walked anyone, which was like kind of surprising to me, to be honest, because like I said, I wasn't really built up as a starter, because during that period of time after winter ball, I was still like throwing bullpens for affiliated teams. And when I throw bullpens for affiliated teams, I'm not going to go like, hey, I'm going to go 3 simulated innings here, and so every time I would throw a bullpen on a mound, I was, tracking Rapsodo reports and stuff like that to send to teams, and it was super low volume and super high intensity. So it wasn't until maybe like 4 or 5 days before I left for Lake Erie that I did like a 3-inning sim game or whatever. So it was cool that the first time that I was out there in a simulated environment sim game went 5 innings. So, and it felt really good too. So that was dope. Now, I'm going to try to rattle this all, like the recap portion of this, off pretty quickly, and then get to the real juicy stuff, which is like, where did things go wrong, and how am I going to improve, and like the plan and process moving forward for me, and basically what's next in this journey. So the recap goes, I started the year pretty strong. I think my first start, of course, got rained out. And then first start officially, I think I went 6, gave up 1, which is great in terms of, again, like not having been built up. You can check out my first, I believe, 3 outing, or maybe 4 outing breakdowns on my YouTube channel under outing breakdowns. But long story short, my time in Lake Erie I thought went really well from a performance standpoint. There was a couple games that were really frustrating in terms of like having, you know, a good start and then going out for that last inning and just not being able to finish strong, which in this game really like amplifies the numbers. You know, like I think there was 2 outings out of the 4 or 5 in Lake Erie that I went out for the last inning being the 7th after having thrown like six innings, 1 run, 2 runs or whatever, and then had given up like 2 runs in that last one, which just sucks. You know, finish strong one time. And then the last start that I had with Lake Erie was the worst one. I had dealt with like these fingernail problems. I was pretty vocal about it on that vlog episode. I forget which one that was, but I believe something about that fingernail thing and like not being able to throw like I typically throw, maybe getting on the side of the ball, maybe not like getting full extension or whatever it was, kind of messed up my elbow in a way that isn't super serious in my opinion. It's bone chips. And I mean, if you were to look at every single pitcher's elbow in the MLB, I'm thinking 90% of them have bone chips, you know, loose bodies, whatever. And that was the surgery that I had in 2016, was the removal of bone spur and loose bodies, which never regained my full range of motion back. But like I said, it's happened a few times throughout my career. Nothing serious. It's like it gets really inflamed, and then, you know, you get a cortisone shot, take a week off, and then you're good. I think the way that it was handled in Lake Erie was, it is what it was. Having the diagnosis of the bone chips on a Friday, and then having to wait a whole nother week just to see the doctor to get the cortisone shot, like it was just a waiting period, which ended up really backfiring, because the whole reason that Lake Erie released me was because I was injured and I was taking up salary. But again, like, I'm not here to bash anybody. I have the utmost respect for everyone in that organization. I loved everyone. I loved my time there. It's just the business of baseball, right? Like, that's the thing. And I even did a whole vlog episode on that, and on the business side of it. You can see that whole episode. It's like 45 minutes long of how quickly that stuff happens and how it changes. So I think I was out maybe a whole month with the bone chips, or the elbow inflammation, you know, whatever you want to call it. And then I got released Lake Erie out of nowhere. They called me and said, or no, they didn't even call me. I came into the clubhouse that day, and they were like, "Hey, we're releasing you. We got to get rid of your salary." So I was like, "Okay, you know, it is what it is. That's the game." Packed up, and fortunately had some offers like right away to continue to play, and ended up agreeing to go to the New York Boulders. Again, you can check out all the behind-the-scenes content on that in vlog episode 13, so be sure to check that out. Now, the time with the New York Boulders, let's get into that. So when I got there, I was still technically like on the disabled list, and it was kind of funny. I got cleared to throw, and I think I jumped on a mound maybe once before like my first start in Quebec, which was another vlog episode. My first time in Canada, having go over borders and stuff, that was pretty cool. And then my first start in Quebec went really well. I had a pitch count limit, innings limit. I think I was only supposed to go 3 innings. I went 4, gave up, I think, 1 run, 2 runs. You can check out that outing breakdown as well. And then I had a stretch of starts that just sucked. And this is where we'll really get into it here at the 19:20 mark on the pod track. But I had a stretch of starts that just were like confusing to me, in a way that like I felt okay. I didn't feel like the injury itself, or like whatever you want to call that thing, was prohibiting me or restricting me from doing anything spectacular on the mound. But it was just weird. Like, I'd give up a stupid amount of CNI'd singles and bloop hits and 0-2 hits, like things that, like, I know we talk about control the controllables and things that like are beyond your control, blah blah blah. Like, I understand that, talk about it a lot, but like these things felt like they were in my control. Like, I wasn't. It was frustrating because like there was these outings, you know, I'd go like 3 and give up 5, and I'd go like, you know, 3 and change and give up 4 or maybe more. Who knows? I forget. But I don't really look at stats, to be completely honest with you. But these stretch of starts that I had after my first good one were just frustrating, because I didn't feel like I was getting beat. I didn't feel like it was something that I was like, I need to reevaluate and freaking and reinvent the wheel here. And then kind of throughout the time with the new team, you get more comfortable with your catchers. You kind of have a better plan moving forward. You start to identify what the hitters are doing to you, and you just, again, the game is just adapt, right? Just a game of adjustments. And then finish strong. My last 2 outings were probably my best outings. And again, like, I look at it's funny too, because I said I don't look at stats really a whole lot. I used to get so consumed with those that now I just try to avoid it. But I did look at it before this podcast just to kind of have some context. But it's like, gosh, those numbers when I was with New York just sucked, you know, almost a 5 ERA. And it's like, going back to these outings, you're sitting there, you're like, oh man, I threw pretty well. I think my second to last outing, I had a no-hitter into the 5th, and ended up, like, that was my best outing all year, both teams, and it ended up being a 6 2/3, 4 earnings type thing. Like, it was, it's just funny. This game's really funny. So the reason why I want to do this segment is because I want to encourage young ball players. Like, everyone's going to try to define you as a athlete based on your numbers, but there's so much more to it. I thought I had a very successful year. And when I say success, my definition of success may be a little bit different. But I don't look at those numbers and say, man, I definitely didn't have a good year. Like, that was a down year for me. I don't see it like that. I do think there's some specific things that we'll talk about here in a little bit that influenced those little frustrating dynamics that I mentioned earlier with the, you know, a lot of singles and the duck farts and 2 out or 0-2 hit, like all these little tiny things that I believe are somewhat within your control. Talk about that here in a little bit. But going back to the numbers, not good. I guess one thing with my numbers that I will say was good was, like, as a starter, you know, you don't want to really give away a lot of free passes. I think my walk rate was decent. Now, it's funny because as soon as I started pitching better, I believe my walk rate increased. And this is where we'll get into this dynamic that I learned throughout this year, and I've learned this in the past as well, but something that I learned and applied this year, you know, and finished strong. So there's this whole concept of, like, what makes somebody an uncomfortable at bat as a pitcher, right? And if you're a hitter, like, what makes that pitcher comfortable? And then the flip side of that is what makes that pitcher an uncomfortable at bat, right? So you just obviously can paint this picture of, like, uncomfortable promotes success or better results as a pitcher, right? Not speaking to the hitter standpoint. And then comfortable probably influences poor performance results coming from the pitcher side, right? Never want to be somebody that's like people look forward to facing. Like, that's brutal. But there's this whole like dynamic of this walk rate stuff. So I think, you know, going into it, my first 3 or 4 outings with New York, I think I walked maybe 3 guys total, was in the zone, which is, again, not a bad thing. We're all taught to do that. But I think there's just this idea that, you know, it was somewhat so comfortable for guys because they knew that I was going to be in the zone and they could sell out with any count. Okay? Now, sticking with this subject of being comfortable, I also want to kind of bring in this topic of like my pitch repertoire at the time of which I was early season with the Boulders. I kind of just threw. Remember what I said about like only get on the mound once after that injury? So I went a whole month, maybe 5-6 weeks, without really throwing on the mound, without throwing any pitches per se. So like my first couple starts back, like I hadn't thrown a changeup, I hadn't thrown a split, I hadn't thrown a curveball. So I was just like, hey, we're gonna keep it simple with the pitches that I feel most comfortable with: fastball, cutter, slider, and let's go to work. Okay, so for some reason, I think I went my first 4 outings just going fastball, cutter, slider. Now, you got to realize, like, that's a very comfortable, kind of predictable type thing if I'm not going hard in with my fastball to righties and going away to lefties. Basically just arm side, right? So if I'm not using that side of the plate, then, and I got some great feedback, you know, throughout the season with some of the hitters that, you know, felt comfortable enough to talk to, Gift and Gope being one of them, my best friend, favorite player. But he's just like, yeah, you just kind of, as a righty, you know, if everything's going away, you just kind of sell out, like, all right, it's going to go that way. And in early stages with New York, I wasn't really going hard into righties, like for effect, which again promotes just a comfortable at bat because you can sell out. Now, I was still having success with that, like, you know, I mean, you're still going to get guys that not necessarily get fooled, but like will get themselves out because like the pitches themselves are good. Like I thought, you know, like some of those outings where I just was like confused, I thought the pitches themselves were good. They were just like getting hits, and this is a direct correlation to, you know, the 0-2 hits and the bloop singles and the inability to put guys away, you know, after getting ahead. Like I had so many 0-2, 1-2 counts and just ended up seeing singles. I'll be really interested. I gave my content manager a assignment to take all of my outings from this year from Lake Erie in New York and like put together a highlight reel essentially of like all the times I got 0-2 and just see what happened to hitters, or 1-2 or 0-1. I thought I was very ineffective with getting ahead, staying ahead, but not putting away guys. So I guess I know this kind of thing is all over the place, but hopefully you can pick out some pretty good chunks. The biggest thing that I saw as a difference maker within, you know, my last couple outings with New York that were drastically better than the first few was being intentional with throwing the heater arm side. I think it opens up a whole lot of the plate, right? And it was something that I, at the time, just was like, I don't think I need to do that because throwing a fastball arm side isn't going to really set up that cutter glove side. Now, what I realized, which is a very interesting point, that I didn't even really consider as I was preparing to do this, but the more that I threw the four-seamer arm side, the better that I got at throwing the cutter arm side, which is something that I've really never done intentionally. And that's a hard 2-pitch combo, dude. I will say, like, moving forward, that's going to be something really big for me, even as a reliever. So throw a four-seamer in. Like, you're seeing Corbin Burns do this right now with Milwaukee. It's just, again, we talk about what promotes an uncomfortable at bat. Doing this stuff, right? Like, it's very basic to say, like, oh yeah, throw your pitches to both sides of the plate. But, like, look at the movement profile of those pitches, and you got yourself a very uncomfortable at bat. Now, so that's another thing moving forward for me personally that I think I need to spend a lot of time on is, you know, I spent a lot of time these past couple years coming back from surgery on the elevated heater. For those of you guys who've followed me for a while, you know how much work I've put into that, which I want to say has taken away a little bit of my ability to go east and west. And as a starter, I do believe that that's something that is extremely valuable. So moving forward in, like, developing a plan or developing a process for, you know, development purposes, that's something that I want to really keen in on. I want to take my fastball development, my fastball training approach a step further. And instead of just saying, hey, elevated fastball, I want to get into a habit of being like, all right, glove side elevated. All right, arm side elevated. I just think that is going to be a much better training plan than middle elevated. Even if I don't execute it, I think I'm just better, or I think it just sets up more moving forward. Another thing, I'm just sitting here talking to myself and coming up with all these things that are just popping up into my head as I talk. Another thing that I really noticed this past year is the effective velocity effectiveness. So if you don't know what effective velocity is, it's this idea of, like, the hitter's eyesight and the perception of the ball coming in and what that perception is to the actual, like, speed of the pitch, right? So obviously the speed of the pitch, doesn't matter where it is going to read the same on a gun, but to the hitter it could be a totally different number, right? So you look at, like, so I think there's like 9 squares on the strike zone, right? You look at, like, elevated, in, plus 2.5, in, middle, plus 2, in, down, plus 1.5, and then you kind of just go around. So then the opposite side of the plate away would be minus 2.5, minus 2, minus 1.5. I believe that that's how it goes. And I really saw that this year as a starter, because you get a lot more volume, right, with hitters. And I really saw that that effectiveness, and it goes hand in hand with the effectiveness of pitching. For me, it was the righties, because I obviously go glove side pretty well, and when a lefty steps in, pretty good execution. I would like to look at my splits, honestly, from this past year and see if righties hit me better than lefties. That'd be very interesting. I bet you they did, which hasn't been the case my entire career, I don't think. So that's going to be something moving forward with the heater. And then another dynamic that happened in this past year, especially with my time with New York, is I, like, shied away from my heater. You know, there was starts where I threw more cutters than I did four-seamers. And I love my fastball. I love my heater. And I shied away from it because I just felt like it wasn't an effective pitch. You know, and that's not good. I remember there was a point, I think after a start in, no, I think it was home. I think it was after a start at home where I went, like, 3 and change and gave up, like, 5 or something, super frustrated. It's like, kind of like, I was like, what am I doing, man? Like, I'm not really throwing a lot of heaters, because as a starter, my heater's not that, in my opinion, it's not anything like super special. It's like probably 90, 93, which is funny, right? Because out of the pen, it's like mid-90s. I'm soft. But, yeah, I kind of just got in that subconscious notion and accepted it mentally of, like, all right, this fastball is not like a good pitch. And another thing, like, in indie ball, you got a lot of hitters that are good hitters. Say that 10 times fast. They can hit the fastball pretty good. So that was always in the back of my mind, and I always thought, like, you know, first couple outings, my cutter actually was my best pitch, because it is heater out of the hand. You get engagement of the swing, you miss a barrel, And there's a lot of times where I missed the barrel, it'd be a hit still, blah, blah, blah. I'm not trying to throw that pity party, but just saying, right? And then after that one start I just mentioned, I was like, all right, I need to throw more heaters, man. I need to pitch off my hitter. So that was another thing, along with the arm side fastballs that I put into place at the end of the year that influenced more positive performance results, along with my ability to throw my straight changeup. For those of you guys who have been following me for a while on my social media platforms, you'll know that the changeup and I, throughout the entire life of myself, has not got along. Just haven't really ever been able to like figure it out and be consistent with it, right? And I put so much work in throughout my 4 days in between each starts with the changeup that I couldn't have been more happy with how it ended. Like where I'm at now with my changeup, like having the ability to throw it in counts that are typically fastball or cutter counts. It's so beneficial. I would say it's right up there with the fastball. I would say it's probably the biggest thing, honestly. The usage of my changeup was the biggest thing at the end of that season that influenced better results, right? Because I talked about how like everything's kind of going away to righties, into lefties, and then throwing that changeup that is a four-seam changeup. It's a straight changeup. It's not by any means like nasty that you're going to see a bunch of highlights on. It's just 10, 12 miles an hour off my heater, and it's straight, which is a different look. So anytime you have that with a fastball that's profiling basically similar, and stuff that's going away. And then I started throwing a curveball there at the end too, because I just started getting more comfortable and started, I guess it was just comfort. So yeah, the changeup for me was the biggest thing. Now it's going to be interesting going to winter ball, because usually as a bullpen guy, I never throw a straight changeup. I usually never ever have thrown a straight changeup as a relief pitcher. I'm a 3-pitch guy out of the pen: fastball, slider, split. Keep it simple. Let the big dog eat. Let's go. But I really, really liked where my changeup was at my last few starts. Like it was, you can just see it. Like, and the thing that I'm really like kind of is constantly on my mind is like, okay, well, if I'm only throwing a 92 mile an hour fastball with that changeup, like now what if I, when I go to the bullpen, I'm throwing that 95 mile an hour fastball with that changeup? Like, is it going to only play more? Is it going to play even better out of the pen? I'm only hesitant just because it's tough. It doesn't move a whole lot. I don't think it moves at all, to be honest. But I did get some punchies with it, man. Like that was the coolest thing. So I think I'm going to keep it. Yeah. I'll go to winter ball with my splitter and changeup, and I'll just try to make in-game decisions on like, hey, where are we at with this? Because to be honest, like personally, I don't think it's hard for me to stay up to date, I guess, with my splitter. There's been times, honestly, the best my splitter's ever been in games has been when I'm like, hey, I'm going to throw a splitter today. I haven't thrown one in 6 months. Like, let's go. And it's the best. It's crazy, right? So I might just take that approach, honestly. What else do we got? Learning experiences, or just things that I maybe thought I did well. What I thought I did well was like my ability to go deep into games and like just feel good. Especially coming off that quote unquote injury, even though I won't acknowledge that it was an injury, like I felt really good. My body felt good. My arm felt good. My mind was another thing, but no. And then my recovery, dude, like I recovered really well. I will say, and shameless plug, Ketone Aid. I put this on another vlog episode. Ketone Aid is a company that produces ketone esters. Now, I don't want to get into the nerdiness of this, but I really do think that drink was a difference maker for me. and recovering. And obviously I'm a nerd too, and a total geek when it comes to like the recovery aspect. I wear a Whoop, a Fitbit, an Oura Ring, an Apple Watch, all to track data just to make sure that I'm giving myself the best opportunity to recover. Because for me as a starter, and I see this a lot too, 5-day routine. Indie ball, it's usually a 6-day routine because you have that day off. But like in between, guys are just like, I'm so sore, I'm not going to throw, or I'm going to throw really light. For me, even starting day one, like I want to be, yeah, obviously you're going to be sore a little bit, but like I want to be fresh enough to like get some work in. Like I got 4 days here, 5 days. Like I want to get some work in, you know? And that was a huge benefit for me in that season, to make those adjustments that I did, because I felt good even day one. Like, you know, that was a huge piece for me, and I take that stuff really seriously. And there's a lot of protocols you can check out. I did another podcast on like my recovery routines, that if you're wanting more information on that, I'd encourage you to check that out. I want to say it's like therobbyrowshow.com/recovery or something like that. Yeah, what else? All in all, I thought it was a cool year. Like it was a good year for me. It gave me reassurance that I can be a starting pitcher at the professional level, which is funny because I know there's going to be a lot of people that are like, dude, you just had a 5. Like, what are you in indie ball? Like, what are you doing? But I really do believe that. I think, you know, the game of baseball is so, I know I say this a lot, it's so interesting because you look back at some of these outings, and as I do breakdowns on these outings, like I really realize these things. Like you take away like one pitch from an outing, or say like the umpire, instead of like calling that 1-1 pitch a ball, he calls it a strike, and now it's 1-2. Like one pitch can change a whole lot, you know, and that's I think why I'm so optimistic. I guess that's why I'm so optimistic moving forward. Because if I didn't believe that I was good at this game, I don't think I would play it. Because I do believe that I'm really good at this. I have to believe that. Now, again, numbers are going to try to define you, but I try to seek out other things that I can define myself with. You know, there's and again, like the whole thing with being a starting pitcher, it's hard. Why is it hard? You're flipping the lineup over. You're going deep into games. You're giving the hitters a lot of opportunities to get hits off you, you know. And there's that comfortness level too when you flip the lineup over. And hitters, you know, shoot, man, we live in a day and age right now where baseball talent is at an all-time high. Independent baseball has never been more talented, and I'm not just saying that because I've played there. I think the talent in independent baseball is at an all-time high. You take the team that's going to win my league championship, and you put them in a AA, AAA series, playoff series, it's going to be close. That's how good these guys are. But I'm not going to admit that publicly because hitters suck, right? I'm just kidding. Not really. All right, what else? So let's go pitch by pitch. Like I said, we already covered the fastball. The cutter, I thought the cutter was there all season. I will say this has historically happened as well. When I throw a cutter and a slider, they start to blend into each other. My last couple outings, even though, like I said, the last couple outings were good, the last couple outings I saw that the cutter and the slider were starting to blend, or, you know, the cutter was starting to blend more of slider. I think the first couple starts of the year with the cutter, it was like 86, 88, and then the last couple it was like 83, 85. And, you know, the spin efficiency was lower. I won't get into all that stuff. Slider's interesting for me. Slider is my best pitch when I'm a bullpen guy. It's like a hybrid of my cutter and slider when I combine the two. But as a starter, it just wants to be like this loopy, slurvy, predictable thing. Now, I got better. The slider, I wouldn't say the slider itself as the pitch got better, but I think my utilization of the pitch got a lot better
because I was kind of in that mindset of like coming out of that winter ball season last year where I got a lot of strikeouts with the slider. I was like, all right, that's my strikeout pitch. And as a starter, it just wasn't a strikeout pitch. So the utilization, being, hey, I'm going to throw it early in counts. I'm going to throw it 0-0. I'm going to throw it 1-0, 2-1, steal a strike. So that type stuff, I think it just played better. And then I talked about the changeup. Really was non-existent good part of the year until it was. And then it really benefited me. Splitter, basically non-existent all season. Another year, chalk it up. 2021, another non-existent splitter year. My splitter was my best pitch, guys. That's what's so freaking comical about this thing. I was known as a splitter guy when I got drafted. Now it's gone. But I got the Shohei Ohtani grip now, so don't call it a comeback. You're welcome. Curveball. I talked about the nail problems early in the year, so I spike it. I was spiking my curveball, and I put my nail in the middle of the seam, and as soon as my nail like completely ripped, I wasn't able to do that, so I was like, hey, I'm not going to throw a curveball. And then the injury thingy happened, and then so on and so forth. And then I didn't start throwing the curveball again until September 1st, maybe September 5th or something like that. Threw a couple in games. It's effective, dude. I like that pitch. I do want to continue to do more work with that pitch because I think it does, when we talk about opening up more opportunities and doing at bat and being a more uncomfortable AB, I think, when we look at my entire repertoire, the one thing that's lacking is north to south, right? So you profile four-seam fastball south to north, and then you're at your sliders east to west, cutters east to west. Changeups, like I said, it's kind of more of a north to south, or more of a just same as my fastball with little dive. I wouldn't say that was a north to south pitch. But then that curveball, now when you look at like the difficulty for hitters to track pitches, like looking at their eyesights going up, down, away, in, like you do a lot of these things, you check a lot of those different boxes, you got yourself a pretty tough pitcher to face. Right? In a perfect world, you have the command of all those things. Like that's the biggest hindrance for me with the curveball is that there's a lot of occasions where I just do not have anything remotely close to command of it. But I'm going to do more work with it. So I'm actually got to stop for gas here in a little bit. 7 miles. A little less than that, I suppose. So I'm going to conclude this, but just to conclude this entire thing, let's talk about my plan moving forward. So I'll leave for winter ball. I'm going back to Mayaguez, Puerto Rico. I'll leave, I think he said, like October 25th or something. So I'll have roughly, I'm going to a wedding right now, I'll have roughly like 4 or 5 weeks in the lab. This road trip from New York to California has been my quote-unquote shutdown period. I haven't thrown. I haven't really done anything. I feel terrible. So right when I get home, we'll do a quick 2-3 day on-ramp, and then we'll get going. We'll do a week worth of LT and PDs, which is long toss pull downs. And then right after that week, right around October 1st probably, we'll start doing simulated, or no, we'll probably do like first couple times on the mound will be just strictly bullpen stuff. There's some mechanical things that I do want to touch on that I didn't really even mention in this podcast episode because I didn't even want to get into that because I kind of have some ideas for future podcast episodes now that I think I'm going to resume my show, season 7. I guess this is episode 1 of season 7, so that's dope. There's some mechanical things that I want to fine tune, so I'll spend probably another week on the mound with mechanical stuff. And then we'll do what we did last year before winter ball, and we'll get up there and we'll do, simulated sequence, start with a couple batters, and then we'll start with an inning, fresh inning, coming in the middle of an inning, coming in the middle of an inning, then having another clean inning, stuff like that. And, so you guys can check all that stuff out. I'll be posting all that content as I usually do on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. So be sure to be plugged in and follow me on all those channels. I'll have to edit this. Dang it. All right. that's what I got for the 2021 recap. I think there was a lot more to cover, and I didn't. So I might do like a part 2, because I kind of, that was like the basic version of the recap for me, and like the good and the bad and stuff like that. I might want to do a deeper dive onto some of this stuff. Maybe not. We'll see. Got to get gas. Thanks guys for listening. As always, enjoy the rest of your day or night. God bless. Love you. Until next time, the Robby Rowe Show baseball podcast is over. Goodbye.